Hello and welcome all to the 2014 NFL Draft Lottery for Vinnie's League. That's right, the MIZ-SPE League. I'm your host, TKBJR Jr. I'd like to thank you for tuning in this afternoon to our fantasy draft lottery. First off, let's address the changes that are happening in the league. A 14-team league, don't see that very often. A beast of a league, if you want to call it that. Lots of teams. Makes things very interesting, puts a lot of emphasis on the draft with 14-team teams. Not as many players available on the waiver wire. Trades get a little picky. There's been rumors that this league does have trust issues. The minimum amount of trades probably a league could ever make was made in this league last year. So overall, a little bit of a trust issues league. But anyways, like I said, let's get to the changes this year to the league. Let's see how they affect the play. Let's see what they do. First off, the buy-in has been raised. That's right, folks. The buy-in for already one of the most expensive fantasy leagues in Missouri has just been upped. The stakes have been raised. People are excited. To that point, safeties, no longer 2 points, they're 3. It's a little bit more of a capitalization for your defense, a big-time thing for your defense. Got to be excited about that if you draft a top defense in the early couple of rounds. We are also saying goodbye to one of our members. That's right, Drew Vachon will no longer be a member of our league, and we'd like to wish him well with a moment of silence. Okay, that was good. I think he would have liked having the NFL music in the background. That's the kind of guy he is. He's an intense guy. He goes after it. Wish him the best. Anyways, I'd like to take this chance to welcome our new member, Jason Ridgway. We will discuss him later. But anyways, let's move on to the league, which is now, like I said, big buy-in. There will be a pick'em league associated with this against the spread or just a normal straight pick. We're not sure which one it's going to be yet. But overall, a very competitive league. 14 teams, like I said, a beast of a league. Let's first move on to the first place team because I know you people are all excited to see the draft, excited to see who gets the first pick, excited to see who gets the last pick because that's, you want to know why? Because last year's champion, that's right, Rob DeLue, Shaba my knob, pretty funny name, pretty big results on the fantasy football field. That's right, this is the guy who gets the 14th pick, got to be a little discouraged coming into the draft, ends up getting the 14-15 combo, the back-to-back picks, paid big dividends for him, paid off in a championship. That's right, an absolutely Cinderella run, and you got to look to one player on his team that made the impact, and that player is Peyton Manning, the top quarterback in fantasy last year, put up a couple big games, a couple 40-point games, even at 50-point games. Rob sneaks in the playoffs with a 7-6 record. Team takes off in the playoffs, like I said, a real Cinderella story. The glass slipper did fit. He did draft Eddie Lacy. His drafting wasn't that well. As you can see, he made a few moves on the waiver wire, 11 acquisitions through the waiver wire. A pretty decent player if you're looking at the league average here. He's right about with the league average. Did drop Eddie Lacy. Probably wishing he could have taken that move back, would have made the championship a little bit more secure because, folks, did I mention he only won the championship by 1 point? That's right, folks. He only won the championship by 1 point. You kind of wish he probably had Eddie Lacy. Breathe a little bit, a little less heart problems. Hopefully he's taking baby aspirin because after that kind of a championship, I don't know how he can keep going, but he's got to be excited to be coming back for fantasy this year. I think somebody who was new to the league last year made a big impact right away. That's right, your champion, the guy with the last pick in the draft, showing draft position, does not mean as much as people initially put the stakes in, or as much as people think it does. That's right, Rob DeLue, Shaba my knob. So without further ado, Shaba on his knob with his team, that kind of sounded, came off wrong. But anyways, without further ado, here's the RD ball. And it'll be going into the bingo lottery machine. Congratulations, Rob, on your league championship. Now we're moving on to the second place team. That's right, Steve Pennington, the Poonawana Mooney squad. Not sure if I pronounced that right. The guy has too long of a last name. He can't expect me to be able to do that all the time. That's unfair expectations. I'm TKBJR Jr. I only live up to expectations. That's what I do. I make things happen. Anyways, when you're looking at this team, this is a guy who probably should have won the league if you're looking at teams strictly on paper. Maybe him and Vinnie, which we'll talk about later in length, had probably the two best teams on paper. That's right, because Steve Pennington, folks, he had 7 top 10 players at their position in his lineup. He had Andrew Luck, Ryan Matthews, Antonio Brown, Alshon Jeffrey, who was a great pick in the 9th round. He's got to be very happy with his late round scouting. You know his scouts are out there working hard, seeing what players are good. Really, Alshon Jeffrey really clicked with McNown early in the season. Cutler took over those reins, really helped the Bear receiving corps take that next step. Steve Pennington's fantasy team took a big step when Jeffrey took that step. Definitely a direct correlation. He also had Jimmy Graham, the Bengals D. Jimmy Graham, of course, the fantasy tight end. No longer wide receiver. Of course, the NFL arbitrators ruled against that. But overall, a quality fantasy tight end. A guy you can throw at your flex spot, but you're going to play him in the tight end spot because he is the best, injury withstanding. Again, Steve Pennington drafted well. A lot of those top 10 players he did draft. His scouting department's phenomenal. You got to think if he gets a top pick this year again, he's going to capitalize, even though his top pick from last year wasn't even on the roster. That's right, folks. This guy knows how to win. He made a couple moves, made 33 waiver wire transactions. That was a league high. Obviously a guy who's making moves, constantly trying to get better. You'd like to see that improvement in a fantasy league owner. Steve Pennington, everybody. So without further ado, the SP ball, or starting pitcher. So that brings us to the third place team, the team that was ever so close to getting to the championship but didn't quite make it. That's right, I'm talking about Jimmy Shapercotter's team. I'm talking about the Honey Nut Denarios. First off, phenomenal name. Like the use of a cereal and Denario Alexander. Giving a big shout out to the MIZZOU there. Hopefully he stays healthy this year. Can have a big year when he's been on the field. He's been an impact player. Off Denario Alexander though, and let's talk about Shapercotter's team. The biggest thing I noticed is he did draft Brandon Whedon. I shouldn't even say that's the biggest thing I noticed, but I did notice he drafted him. That's a wasted draft pick. You don't like to see that in a fantasy draft, especially in a 14-team league where waiver wire transactions and trades are limited. You got to draft well. Got to be disappointed with that Whedon pick last year. But again, he was the third place team, and I think a lot of that has to do with Calvin Johnson. Yes, folks, Calvin Johnson, an absolutely phenomenal fantasy receiver. This is a guy that's a freak athlete. His name is Megatron. That's his nickname because he makes mega plays. Having him on your fantasy team is a big, mega move. Shapercotter definitely paid off for him. Definitely that top draft pick. Always risky taking a receiver in the first round. Shapercotter capitalized. If you look at the rest of his team, it's kind of a ragtag squad. Matt Forte really came through. Usually not a big touchdown-producing guy. Last year produced 12 touchdowns on the ground. I believe a couple through the air. Really helped Shapercotter's team propel to that third-place finish that he's looking for. His quarterback play, though, was suspect at best. He ended up starting the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, of course, is now the Texans' starting quarterback, but the Texans were abysmal last year. You got to be thinking Shapercotter's going to be looking to improve his quarterback play early this year. Looking for him to draft a quarterback early. I definitely could see that as a possibility. His running backs got pretty good. Zach Stacy, a late season emerger. DeAndre Williams, always that consistent running back, guaranteed to get you 8 points a week. Julian Edelman, a late good pickup once Gronkowski went out. A lot of the Patriots targets went to him. Jimmy Shapercotter, new guys that got the ball, new guys that produced on an average level, and that got him a third place finish. You got to think he's been looking to get those exceptional players this year. More players like Calvin Johnson. But let me tell you right now, this third place finish, very good for the Honey Nut Denarios considering his roster on paper. You got to look for him to get even better this year. So without further ado, the JS ball, Jimmy Shapercotter. So next we're moving on to the fourth place team. That's right, the Thunder Gun Express. That's John Torrella's team, the team that took the regular season title. Now, as a regular season title champion, or regular season champion would probably be the best way to put it, you got to be a little bit disappointed with the fourth place finish in the playoffs. Team did fall apart. I guess he could choke, much like Ricky Williams did after he was selected by the New Orleans Saints. And I've been told John Torrella's idol, Mike Ditka, you remember the dreads, you remember the draft, he pretty much traded 3 drafts worth of picks to get Ricky Williams. Torrella had to have that feeling when he didn't quite capitalize on the momentum he had built up all season. Now, when you're looking back in the season, this is a guy whose roster was pretty well assembled. His reliance on Jay Cutler and the Bears quarterbacks didn't pay off as well as he would like. Josh McCown, though, a great midseason pickup, didn't play late in the season. Cutler definitely hurt him down a little bit. Definitely an injury, not injury, but injury and turnover-prone kind of quarterback. Does his faith in Cutler did it prove to hurt him last year? I think the answer to that would be yes. Let me tell you right now, though, he's got Golden Tate, Giovanni Bernard, DeMarco Murray, 3 big players for him, and, of course, G-Reg, the former Bears, is a guy that loves his Bears, but he's drafting Bears, probably go Bears defense 3rd round. Wouldn't be surprised to see that big surprise move of the draft, 14 teams, got to snag a top defense early. Torrella, a team that consistently performed, a guy that had a lot of young players, does a lot of research, knows what he's talking about, knows what he's drafting, takes a lot of strategies, probably done over 300 mocks in the past couple weeks. I've been told, sources confirm, he knows the strategy for every pick. You got to be worried as a regular season champion. You know he's looking to bounce back and get that big cash money prize. So without further ado, John Tortorella, JT. Moving on to the 5th place team, we have James Starks of Winterfell, and that's Vinnie Cacciatore's team. Now, first off, the name Game of Thrones, a Game of Thrones reference. You know he had to be setting himself up for tragedy. That show never ends well. They're not afraid to kill their main characters, and the Game of Thrones name was not afraid to kill Vinnie's season because this guy, on paper and in the league, the highest scoring team in the league, I'm going to say, only 7-6. Most trades in the league, though, this is a guy that did his research, read a lot of Matthew Berry, a lot of Eric Carabell, reading out the trades, doing a little bit of feel, a little bit of fantasy mind of his own. Folks, Here's a guy who ended up with Matthew Stafford, Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy, Shane Vereen, all good pickups. Stafford, always a reliable fantasy quarterback, knows he's slinging that ball 40 to 50 times a game. You got to like that opportunity, that ability to have production. Probably the biggest pick he had, though, last year was easily Jamal Charles, a guy he didn't trade for, a guy he drafted. Got to be happy with that draft pick. Like I said, though, he had 6 trades, which tied the league high with John Pauly, and those trades did not work out quite as well for him. Again, we'll discuss in detail later, but this is a guy that capitalizes on his trades. He gets Vernon Davis. He somehow snags Josh Gordon off the waiver wire or trades him. I'm not sure. I couldn't find the research. It wasn't out there for me, but let me tell you right now, snagging Josh Gordon, who ended up being the #1 fantasy receiver despite missing 2 weeks of the season, was probably the move that helped propel Vinnie's team to the top. He had 7 players in a top 7 at their position. That's an unreal assembly of fantasy talent, a lot of freak athletes, a lot of raw athletic ability on Vinnie's team. That's what he looks for. He looks for athletes. He looks for guys with that big play potential. That's what Vinnie does. That's why he had the most points in the league. You got to think, though, that Game of Thrones name really set him up for heartbreak, set him up for that 5th place finish. You're hoping he doesn't go Game of Thrones reference this year. That's for sure, but you got to watch out for this guy in the draft. He knows he's going to be better prepared, but he's always a guy that's trying to get his way in trades, and he usually does. A very smart guy in terms of trades, a very smart guy in terms of waiver wire transactions, a guy that's not afraid to make the big move to win the big championship. So without further ado, Vinnie Cacciatore. Hopefully I pronounced his last name correct. Now we're moving on to the team, Jim Tan Laundry, of course the weakest name in the league probably. Real disappointing effort here by Connor Allen, the league owner, but let me tell you, this team was not a disappointment. A 6th place finish. This is a guy who's consistently put himself in the top 6 in the fantasy every year, and in this league, that gets you in the playoffs. So he's got to be happy with making the playoffs, looking to make that next step, that Indianapolis Colts, that San Francisco 49ers kind of next step to the Super Bowl, take home that championship ring. He's already taken home a ring because he's getting married soon. Congratulations, Connor. First off. But when you're looking at Connor's roster, you see 3 quarterbacks on there, and you get a little puzzled having 3 quarterbacks. You can only play 1. 2 is probably the max most people carry. This guy has 3, and he ends up starting Case Keenum in the last week of the playoffs. It kind of looks like his team gave up a little bit. Overall, he can't be happy with his quarterback production. Think he's going to probably go quarterback early so he can get that consistent play. Wouldn't be surprised, depending on what pick he gets, to draft Breeze, Manning, and/or, surprise, Tom Brady. Seems like a very Tom Brady type of guy. But the real strength of Connor Allen's team last year was his wide receiving core. That's right. I'm talking about Wes Welker. I'm talking about Eric Decker. I'm talking about Denver Broncos. This is a guy that puts faith in one team. Rumors this year it's going to be the Oakland Raiders. Not sure, but he puts his faith in one team. He hopes they capitalize. Last year it paid off because Peyton Manning had a record-breaking season. Eric Decker really emerged on the scene, ended up getting that big contract for the Jets. Look for him to drop off a little bit. But let me tell you right now, this is a guy that knows his receivers, and he really needs a quarterback. So look for him to go either way in the first couple rounds. That's right, folks, Connor Allen. So without further ado, Connor Allen. Again, folks, I'm sorry if my voice is going off. I'm consistently talking. This is all done in one take. This is all pretty much done improv. So again, thank you for bearing with me. And now we move on to our 7th place team, Easy Money by Clayton Tyner, new owner to the league, a guy who we didn't know much, really what to expect, I guess is the way to put it. But this is a guy that drafts flash, a guy that drafts that pizzazz, that certain edge, a guy that drafts the people that you see on commercials. That's right, if Richard Sherman was available to draft in the fantasy draft, you know this guy would probably take him with the #1 overall pick because he likes that kind of player. He likes that flash. And so when I say this, I'm talking about he has LaShawn McCoy, Russell Wilson, CJ2K. For those of you who don't know, that's Chris Johnson, also a member of the New York Jets, joining Eric Decker, which we just touched on earlier. Like I said, this guy's a flash, bang kind of guy. He's got Terrence Williams, who's a big player for the Cowboys, Michael Crabtree. Again, and absolutely a guy that went for the big players. Focuses a lot of his time on the starting lineup. His bench depth was weak. That's why you think he's got to go to a 6-7 record in the regular season, end up with that 7th place finish, the last place team out of the playoffs. You want to think he's going to make the playoffs this year. Hopefully he gets a couple more exciting players. Look for him to go big. Look for him to go flashy in the draft. So without further ado, Clayton Tyner. Now we're moving on to the 8th place team. A team that really, again, kind of like Vinnie Cacciatore's team, was really hurt by his team name. That's right, I'm talking about Kevin O'Shea Chevrolet. That team was owned by Brett Kohler. He should have known he was doomed the minute he had that name. Kevin O'Shea, of course, the coach of the Cowboys in the Little Giants. Should have known that there was a big factor there. They lost in that movie. Brett Kohler's team lost on the fantasy football field. Really only the best way to describe this team is mediocre. Only 4 players in the top 10, and 2 of them were a defense and a kicker. So when you're having 2 of your best 4 players being a defense and kicker, that's when you know you have problems. Fred Jackson, not a flashy player. You're putting him in your starting lineup every week. Definitely a question mark. The guy always seems to be hurting his calf, hurting his ankles, Achilles, which sounds like it would hurt. But let me tell you right now, folks, Fred Jackson needs to suck up a little bit. Although he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback, Tony Romo also was the other top 10 player on his team. Like I said, the best word to describe this team is mediocre, average, nothing but okay. It's exactly what this team was. You got to think the owner, Brett Kohler, is going to be looking to make some better moves this year. He traded up to get that #1 pick, Adrian Peterson last year, who of course paid out big dividends. His first carry of the year last year, went for a touchdown, thought there was going to be bigger, better things to come. Injuries kind of hurt his season. The Vikings passing game being non-existent also kind of hurt his season. Hopefully Teddy Bridgewater can come in, make an impact, open up the field a little bit for Adrian Peterson. Maybe if he trades up to get that #1 pick again, this guy is a creative owner. He's a dangerous owner. He likes to make moves. He likes having that intrigue. So let me tell you right now, you got to watch out for him trying to make a move up to that #1 pick if he gets Adrian Peterson to get on his team. Of course, a Vikings fan. You know he's going to be drafting a Vikings. Rumor is it's Matt Castle on the 5th, so watch out if you're trying to get him early. But again, Kevin O'Shea Chevrolet changing his name to Danny O'Shea Chevrolet this year. Definitely a curveball. Could see better things on the horizon. A team that's always just been on the cusp of being great. Always just okay. Hopefully he can take the next step this year. So without further ado, the subpar owner, Brett Kohler. Now hold on 1 second before I get to the 9th place team. And that's right, it's Grant Duncan's team. It's Child Please. I'm going to get myself a drink of water, get myself a beverage, Anyways, I'll be right back. Please enjoy the NFL music. If you can hear me talking, things are going well. I'm drinking a Gatorade. It's green. It's G2. I'm watching my calorie content, and I'm back. Let me tell you right now, folks. Grant Duncan, Child Please, a really team of misfortune or unfortunate events. A series of unfortunate events led to this team finishing in 9th place. A 6-7 regular season finish. This league had a lot of teams around that 500 bubble. Really made the last couple of weeks of the regular season interesting. There could have been 5 or 6 teams. Things could have shaken out just tremendously different. This guy could end up making the playoffs, and you probably did not want to see this guy if you're in the playoffs. Cam Newton, Reggie Bush, C.J. Spiller, who came on a little bit later in the year, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Marshall, a guy that knows his receivers, a guy that likes the big play receiver, a Denver Broncos fan himself, Peyton Manning, the long ball translates to his fantasy team. Again, a guy that knows the receiver position. Gotta think he's going to be going receiver early. Another interesting fact, 5 top 5 players at their positions this team had. Again, he had the most points scored against in the league. Not going to win a lot of championships, not going to win a lot of regular season titles when that's happening. You got to watch out for Child Please. He went with the same name again this year. You got to give him a -1 for creativity on that. But let me tell you right now, folks, Grant Duncan, a guy that's supposed to win, a guy that's going to work hard, a guy that's going to try to outsmart you, potentially will. So without further ado, Grant Duncan. We're getting close here, folks. I know everybody's getting antsy. Everybody wants to see their draft pick. But let me tell you, we're coming. Now we move on to another interesting name. I'm talking Jared Cooking with Heisenberg. I'm talking John Pauly's team, who I referenced earlier. Made 6 trades last year. Definitely a sign of a little bit of a desperation from an owner. Was trying to make some moves. The trades didn't work out as well as he had hoped. But let me tell you, I think the big thing that hurt him with his meth cooking name, somebody in the fantasy gods, somebody up there in the clouds was not smiling upon, they're probably frowning upon the supporting of cooking meth. Definitely didn't help, although a very clever team pick, putting Heisenberg's head on the Pope, doing this kind of stance. I suggest you all look it up. Very funny, worth a laugh, worth a check, worth checking out. Now, John Pauly's team last year really carried by running back play, and mainly we're talking about Marshawn Lynch. This guy is an absolute beast on the field. He shakes, he shimmies, he runs over people, he runs around people. His nickname should be Beast Mode. If it's not Beast Mode, I'm trademarking that stuff right now. That's right, Todd Kuiper Berman Jr. trademarking Beast Mode for Marshawn Lynch. Anyways, carried his team last year. The running back position very weak for Pauly's team last year, but when you're looking at the receivers, his flex players, Keenan Allen, A.J. Green, Torrey Smith, all big play threats. Keenan Allen, a rookie out of Cal, Didn't do much the first 3 weeks of the season, really emerged late. An absolutely phenomenal waiver pickup for John Paul. He also did pick up Nick Foles. This guy knows how to work the waiver wire. Very clever, knows when to use that waiver wire priority, knows when to sit back, wait a week, let things come to him. The weekly payouts definitely helped Paulie get his money back because he had some big-time players. You got to think after the production of beast mode for him last year, this guy will probably go running back. Again, we will have a mock first-round draft immediately following this. So let me tell you, folks, you got to look for Paulie to go running back early. You definitely think it's a possibility. But again, a guy who finished 7-6 in the regular season, a guy that was on the verge of making the playoffs, lost out to that spot to Rob DeLue, the eventual league champion. Finished his 10th. Paulie definitely disappointed with his playoff finish. Hopefully his trades, his waiver wire acquisitions, which I do give an A+, improve his team this year. He wants to get out of that cellar of the league, that bottom 4, never a good place to be. So without further ado, John Paulie. Now we're moving on to the Cornball Brothers, or Marcus's McRae team, a rookie owner to the league, a guy that maybe wasn't prepared for all the chaos, all the strategy, all the backstabbing that happens in the MIZ SP League, ZOU, MIZ, that's why I did that. But anyways, a guy that was a little skeptical to make some moves. Only makes 3 waiver wire acquisitions, makes 1 trade. So obviously the trust issues carried over to him that I mentioned for the league, definitely carried over to him. He was kind of feeling out the league. But let me tell you this right now. He had a scary team. If his team translated over this year, you got to think this guy's going to be top contention because he has Andy Dalton, surprisingly, got him late in the draft, ended up becoming a top 5 quarterback. Alfred Morris, believe it was his first-round pick, didn't quite pay as many dividends as he would have liked. Hurt him a little bit. Monty Ball, a guy that can really explode on the scene this year. Denver loses Noshawn Moreno. Monty Ball fills that hole. Hopefully he doesn't have those fumble problems. The fumble problems hurt him early in the season. Didn't get a lot of playing time. But like John Paulie, Marcus McRae is a guy who knows the wide receiver position. From his flag football days, he learned a lot about the route running combinations. He learned about the league pass. He learned how to be a good receiver, and that's how he scouted so well and drafted so well when it comes to the receiver position. Now, who am I talking about? I'm talking about him drafting Anquan Bolden late in the draft, grabs Dez Bryant. Dez, who is absolutely a freak athlete, probably one of the best, one of the most competitive guys in the NFL. People give him shit because he cries. I like it because he's intense. I've been known to cry. I'm Todd Kuiper Berman Jr. I cry. I love football. Gotta love him on your fantasy football team. Shoot, even Brandon LaFell, a guy who had a couple big games for the Carolina Panthers, was a great wide receiver play. Jordan Cameron also drafted him late, had a great stretch from about week 4 to 12, putting up fantasy points. Definitely a little disappointing later in the year. Definitely hurt McRae's chances in the playoffs, or the Cornball Brothers' chances in the playoffs. Definitely a Patriots guy, though, gets Tom Brady's... an owner who has learned a lot in the past couple years. You got to watch out for Marcus McRae. You know he's going to be trying to make a move up the standings, just like everybody else is. They're all trying to catch up to Rob DeLue this year. But McRae, definitely a lethal owner. He's got a year under his belt of experience. Rumor is he just purchased the NFL Red Zone package for his condo down in Florida, so we know he's going to be all about the fantasy football this year. Watch out, folks. Marcus McRae. Without further ado, Marcus McRae. We're getting there, folks. I promise. I know this is tough, but we're getting there. Next up, we're talking about, I'm not going to say his name because it is a bit racist, but I'm talking about Jimmy Curry's team, a.k.a. Shrimp. Probably hasn't been called that in a while. Living out in Colorado, probably meeting a whole bunch of new people. Probably didn't bring that nickname up very frequently. People are probably calling him Jimmy, and probably maybe even calling him Curry, but that could be confused with the Indian food. We're guessing he's being called Jimmy. Now, here's a guy that, although finishes 12th in the league in the playoffs, definitely a disappointing team in the playoffs, looking to improve that this year, looking for guys that are going to play late in the season, maybe not draft some guys from some top teams, could be in a strategy this year, but a guy that finished 7-6. And again, right on the bubble with Jared Cooking with Heisenberg, that's John Paulie's team, and Rob DeLue on that bubble of making the playoffs. Things could have been dramatically different for him if he had taken Rob's spot, but he didn't. His team falls apart in the playoffs. But here's a guy who drafted well. He got Drew Brees, Jordy Nelson, Victor Cruz, Andre Johnson, Antonio Gates, Blair Walsh, one of the best kickers in fantasy, the guy that just doesn't miss, absolutely electric from the kicking position. The only real questionable player on his roster has got to be Mike Williams, who is now in Buffalo, played for Tampa Bay last year. The guy was the 110th rated receiver. Even in a 14-team league, you got to expect an owner to make a move and get rid of that guy in your roster. He's an absolutely detriment to the team. Some even called him a virus in the locker room, the fantasy, locker room, this guy was a detriment, a virus, a guy that really brought the mood down. Surprising to have a 110th ranked player on your team despite a 14-team league. Could have made a better move, could have had a roster spot, potentially a waiver wire pickup, could have got a Nick Foles, a Keenan Allen. Disappointed that he leaves Mike Williams on his roster. But overall, a very good starting team. Depth probably hurt him late in the season. You know he's going to be looking to draft some depth. He's going to be paying very much attention in those late rounds. I'm talking rounds 12 through 16. If there's 20 rounds, which I don't believe there is, this is a guy that's going to capitalize on all those picks. My sources confirm every night he stays up till 2 a.m. studying mock drafts. He doesn't actually do them. He gets his friends to send him the results. He scans them over. He's got a very mathematic formula. Of course, an engineer, a guy that knows math, a guy that knows what he's doing. Very scary this year. A very Billy Bean type owner, a Moneyball kind of guy. So without further ado, Jimmy Curry. 2 more here, folks. Now, of course, a very disappointing season last year for Henny Boo Boo, of course, going off the name of Honey Boo Boo, the, I believe, TLC, young, blonde, fat, spoiled chick. He even throws a frowny face at the end of his name. All you have to say about that is oofda, because that was really the indication of how his entire season went. It's just a big oofda, a big oops. A lot of misses in his draft. A lot of guys that didn't really pan out for him. He drafted Ray Rice early, I believe top 5 pick, and Ray Rice just wasn't a top 5 running back. He was actually the 30th rating running back this year. That kind of haunted him. Kind of scarred his team the rest of the year. A guy that was not afraid to change his name, though, and I think that Henny Boo Boo was definitely the most appropriate. Again, not a lot of depth, not a lot of quality players. An owner that made 41 moves, a little bit of desperation. But here's a guy that's always been in the top 4, top 5, competing for championships, competing for that moolah, competing for the greenery. Let me tell you right now, Nate Enzi is an owner who I think can make a big comeback. A Kansas City Chiefs-like comeback from worst to first. His draft didn't go well last year. He banked on a lot of older players, a lot of aging players, a lot of players that are now retired, a lot of players that hadn't proven themselves as well. Rookies, age. The only real good pickup he had was Riley Cooper, who absolutely exploded in Chip Kelly's spread offense, real fast movie. You haven't watched it, I highly suggest watching the Eagles offense. Very entertaining, but definitely the best player on his roster besides his kicker. And anytime the kicker is the best player on your team, let me tell you right now, you got a problem. Henny Boo Boo, though, watch out for Nate Enzi, an owner that could go from worst to first. So without further ado, Nate Enzi. So that finally moves us to our new member, Jason Ridgway. Now, not a lot of information coming out about this new owner. The rumor is he'll be a very active, possibly the most active owner in the league. That's something that the league is excited for. They need more activity. Obviously, a little bit of the trust issues, as I mentioned. Trades. Only waiver wire acquisitions really made a big play in the standings. Trades, not so much. This is a guy that will make trades. You know he's going to be throwing out 15, 20 trades a week, trying to improve his team. Rumor is he's a smart, savvy owner. Lots of good things going for him. So that's all I have from my sources, folks. So Jason Ridgway, everybody. I'm talking the J, I'm talking the R, I'm talking Ridgway. That's right. Welcome to the league, Jason Ridgway. Again, supposed to be a very active, a very savvy owner. So without further ado, I'm going to grab a sheet here and also adjust the camera. My camera crew was actually at lunch, so I'm going to have to do this myself. So apologies if the camera movement isn't as good as you would expect it from a professional broadcast like this is. So please, bear with me. And here it is, folks, the draft lottery. All the balls have been put into the bingo cage. I'm going to give it a spin here, get a first spin in. I haven't done it in a while. Been about a week, so I'm just trying to get the feel of the bingo machine. You really have to feel these kind of things out. Not something you can just go into, balls deep, essentially. You got to really ease into the bingo ball machine. So, again, without further ado, let me make sure I have a pen and paper to write this draft order down in case some people can't watch the videos. Internet goes out. Those things happen all the time. I understand Missouri humidity oftentimes affects the energy. I know you're probably pissed that you're sitting here waiting at the bingo ball machine, so here we go. With the first pick will be made in the MIC SPE League by. I had 2 balls come out, folks. That's right, I had 2. I'll be grabbing the first one here. As you can see, the first one come out. The first pick will be made by the newest member in the league. Congratulations, it only seems right, the expansion franchise. That's right, Jason Ridgway snags himself the first pick of the draft. Congrats to Jason. I'll write this down real quick. We got Ridgway with the first pick, and now I know you're all waiting to see who the second ball belongs to. And folks, let me tell you, it's the Cornball Brothers. It's a guy that's going to be a scary owner this year. That's right, this is Marcus McRae. Congratulations, Marcus McRae, second pick of the draft. Wondering what he's going to do as a Packers fan. Could go Lacey, could go Rodgers. Marcus McRae, second pick in the draft. Bum, bum, bum. I love this music. It gets me pumped up for the fall. The changing and the coloring of the leaves. That crisp autumn air. Very excited for football season to begin. With the next pick, the third pick will be made by the team who I said had the worst name last year. He gets the third pick, a guy that's always in the top 6, always in the playoffs. That's right, it's Connor Allen with the third pick. Going to be interesting to see what he does. Again, Connor Allen, congratulations, third pick. Writing this down. The anticipation's probably killing everybody who hasn't seen their names picked yet right now. I know it's intriguing. A lot of stuff going on. With the fourth pick, and I should say the fourth pick will be made by. Fourth pick has came out, folks. And that's right, we have Shrimp, a guy whose regular season was definitely better than playoffs. You know he's going to like being in that fourth position. Jimmy Curry, everybody. Shrimp, a.k.a. Shrimp, I should say. Congratulations, fourth pick, Jimmy Curry, Shrimp. Nickname will never leave you. Anyways, the fifth pick in Vinnie's Fantasy League, the MIZSP League, will be made by. Folks, I have the fifth pick right here, and I'm talking about Jimmy Shaper-Cotter. That's right, folks, JS, a guy with a great name, Honey Nut Denarios, hoping he can follow that up again this year. Jimmy Shaper-Cotter with the fifth overall pick. And now I have the sixth pick sitting right here, so I'm just going to drop it right now. And that's right, folks. The sixth pick will be made by last year's league champion, Rob DeLue. So that's right. With the fifth, we have Jimmy Shaper-Cotter. With the sixth, we have Rob DeLue. You're thinking he probably goes RG3. Rumor is his knee's looking great. The guy's a big Redskins fan. Hail Redskins. He says it all the time on Twitter. Maybe not as frequently as you would think, but he says it a decent amount. So yeah, sixth pick, Rob DeLue. So overall, and Rob. So let's just recap the top 6 picks. Ridgway, Marcus, Connor Allen, Shrimp, Jimmy Shaper-Cotter, and Rob DeLue. So the 7th pick will be made by. Folks, the 7th pick is right here. I have it. That's right, your league manager, your league facilitator, the league's commissioner, Vincent Cassatore. That's right, James Starks of Winterfell. Hoping he doesn't go Game of Thrones. Name this year, doesn't jinx himself like he did last year, but you know he's going to be excited with the 7th pick. Equal distance between all of his picks allows him to really strategize, which is a scary thing for all the other fantasy owners in this league. Congratulations, Vinnie. 7 picks down. That means we have 7 left for the rest of us. This is actually getting absolutely heartbreaking, seeing our pick fall farther and farther. So here we go, folks. The 8th pick will be made by. Holy camole, that could have been a disaster, but it wasn't. And the 8th pick will be made by a guy who made as many trades as Vinnie, which is the most trades in the league. That's right, John Pauly, a guy that wants to get in the playoffs. He strategizes a lot. 8th pick, perfect position for him. Heard he actually wanted the 8th pick. Heard he could be traded here, maybe even wanted the 9th. So we'll see what Pauly does. Congratulations, John Pauly, 8th pick. So we're now moving on to the 9th pick. People are getting anxious. The 9th pick will be made by a team that definitely probably wanted a higher pick than this, but it'll be made by the Henny Honey Boo Boos. That's right, Nate Enzi. Congratulations on the 9th pick. Don't think he's going to be able to get his favorite player, Adrian Peterson, this late in the draft. Look for him to draft Jared McKinnon, though. The new Vikings rookie backup definitely has a lot of explosive potential. A D2 player. Look for him to grab him in the later rounds. Of course, we'll mock later, see what happens. But Nate Enzi with the 9th overall pick. Congratulations, Nate. Let me write this down real quick. We're now moving on to the 10th pick. Very few teams left. A lot of the top teams left. So you like to see the league's disparity getting shared. So anyways, and here we go, folks. That's right, with the 10th pick, his actual favorite number, so this is a very weird coincidence. Grant Duncan, congratulations, Grant Duncan, a team that looked great on paper last year, didn't perform as well late in the season as he would have liked. Grant Duncan, 10th pick, looking for that quick, kind of almost back-to-back picks kind of strategy. He's very good at it, did it last year, traded the number 1 pick, so not afraid to move down. Maybe he moves up this year. Lots of intrigue, of course, in a 14-team league. So Grant Duncan, congratulations, 10th overall pick. That means we have 4 teams left. We have Pennington, Kohler, John Tortorella, and Clayton Tyner. They're all probably not hoping for that 14th pick. Let's see who gets it. And the 11th pick in the draft will be made by a guy. The 11th pick in the draft will be made by a guy that, was a mediocre owner last year, described at best. Mediocre at best. That's right, Brett Kohler. Let's move on past him. The 11th overall pick. So there's 3 teams left, and the 12th pick will be made by a ball is flown out. A ball is flown out. That will be the pick. That will be the pick. And the ball belongs to Steve Pennington. Steve Pennington will be working with the number 12 pick. Rumor is he really actually, and I can confirm from my sources, I'm hearing in my ear right now, you can't see I have an earpiece in, but my sources are confirming he wanted number 12 pick. He's really got somebody he promised. Maybe a foreign guy coming over. This guy's a risky owner. Definitely could see him working. Steve Pennington, 12th pick. Congratulations. That leaves 2 teams left. Tortorella, Clayton Tyner. Who gets that last pick? Another ball threw out. And folks, it's in a very awkward position. As you can see, I'm reaching across the screen here. Not my brightest moment, my best moment as Todd Kuyper Berman Jr. Definitely a little bit embarrassed there. But okay, here we go. 13th pick, Clayton Tyner. Congratulations, a team that really had great receivers, but not much else. Clayton Tyner likes the flashy players. Definitely going to be drafting flash. Who's flashy, though, number 13? We'll find out because Clayton's drafting him. And so that means the 14th pick will go to your regular season champion. That seems rather fitting. That's right. The 14th pick goes to John Tortorella. I'd also like to mention that we have a lot of friends' names that starts with J. It also got very confusing when I was labeling these balls to make sure I had all the team names. But the 14th pick, John Tortorella. You know what he's hoping. Forte slips, injury concerns. Not a big touchdown guy usually. Maybe he falls to 14. Probably not, though. Definitely going to be drafting a bear. Look for him to draft Cutler probably 3rd round. Sources are saying. So without further ado, we're almost there, folks. We are almost there. We're going to do the NFL mock draft. So that's right. Looking at the top 200 here with the first pick in the 2014 NFL, well, I shouldn't say NFL, but I should say Fantasy MIZ-SPE League, a league that is probably one of the best, one of the most competitive, one of the most strategic leagues in the country. The first pick, which will be made by Jason Ridgway, the guy is going to go Adrian Peterson. The guy is a once-in-a-generation type talent, somebody who might end up being better than Emmitt Smith, who's the greatest running back of all time. He's playing in a new stadium. He likes the turf at TFC Bank Field. I think it's going to be big for him. Ridgway knows this. Ridgway knows this fact. He drafts Peterson. He goes with a very safe number 1 pick, Jason Ridgway, Adrian Peterson. Now we're moving on to Marcus McCray's squad, and that's right, the Cornball Brothers, a team that overall the depth wasn't great last year. And he's looking to improve upon that depth. And I think he goes with a safe player. I think he goes with a guy that he doesn't think is going to get hurt. But wait. Curveball. Guy's a Packers fan. I was leading you off in a trailer. Hopefully you caught on. I said it earlier when McCray got the 2nd pick overall. Huge Packers fan. He expects big things from Eddie Lacy. Went to an SEC school, as did Eddie Lacy. The correlations are too much. There's too much just cohesion to exist. You can't ignore it. That's why I'm going surprise pick with the number 2 pick. Marcus McCray, Eddie Lacy. Lock it up. Put it on your board. And you know Lacy's going to be excited being owned by a Packers fan. So we now move on to the 3rd pick, and that's right. I'm talking Connor Allen. This is a guy that could surprise some people. A little bit later in the draft, there's rumors going around that he could be trading it down. There's rumors going around that he could be trading up. So we're not really sure exactly what this guy's strategy is. But overall, his quarterback play was suspect last year. This guy knows the value of a good quarterback play. He's an AFC West football fan. Chiefs, AFC West, kind of a direct correlation there again, much like McCray and the Packers. That's why he knows the AFC West. He scouted it very well with much diligence, and that's why with the 3rd overall pick, Connor Allen, a team that you hopefully has a better name than last year, he drafts Peyton Manning with a 3rd overall pick. Again, 3 quarterbacks on his roster last year. Does not want to have that kind of confusion again this year. 3rd overall pick, Peyton Manning. Congratulations, Connor. So with the 4th pick, we move on to Shrimp, a team that, again, was on, or Jimmy Curry, a team that was on that bubble of the playoffs, a team that was ever so close, but yet so far. So let me tell you right now, folks, a guy whose running backs really struggled last year. They did not produce for him as he would like. And we have 3 top 4 running backs left on the board. You have the number 4 pick. You got to be excited seeing that. Of course, this is Matthew Berry's and mine, Ty Burton Jr.'s top 200 fantasy rankings. He's got Charles McCoy Forte. He's got really his pick of the riches there. I think he goes Jamal Charles. Even this guy is from Missouri. He's seen a lot of Charles. He's heard a lot about Charles from Kansas City fans. He's going to be able to see him more on TV because he's an AFC West guy. The guy's living in Colorado. Again, another direct correlation. You got to look at these kind of things when you're thinking fantasy mock drafts. So that's why I'm going with the 4th overall pick, the 2nd overall rated player, Jimmy Curry. Shrimp selects Jamal Charles. Congratulations, Jamal Charles. Congratulations, Shrimp, on a great pick. Now with the 5th overall pick, we're talking about the Honey Nut Denarios, a name that I was absolutely astounded with. A real quality name, a real quality team. Now last year, you got to look at this and you got to say, where were his positions of weakness? Where were his positions of strength? Well, guess what? He had Matt Forte carry him to a nice 3rd place finish this year. And guess what? He's going to do it again this year, but hopefully he's going to get him to the championship. That's right. I'm predicting Jimmy Shaper-Cotter goes Matt Forte, a Midwest guy. He likes the style. He likes Mark Trestman's offense, so I've been told this guy's an absolute fan of the Canadian Football League import. That's right, Mark Trestman, the way he plays his offense, the way he utilizes his running backs out of the backfield. We all know Forte has great hands, so that's with the 5th overall pick. James Shaper-Cotter selects Matt Forte. Now, Rob DeLue, it's going to be tough for him. You got LaShawn McCoy, the 3rd overall rated player, sitting out there on the board. He's got the 6th overall pick. Does he draft him elite champion? You got to think that's a smart move. But Rob DeLue's faith in the Redskins, the hail of the Redskins, he goes a little bit deeper down the board. And that's right, he's not going to draft a guy in the same division. So he goes with the next best available player, a guy whose nickname I just recently trademarked. That's right, I'm talking beast mode. I'm talking Rob DeLue. He likes the physical runner. He likes the ground and pound style, the 3 yards on a cloud of dust. The Seahawks tend to play. Hopefully Russell Wilson emerges a little bit more as a passer this year for the Seahawks' sake. But Rob DeLue likes the consistency that Marshawn Lynch brings to the table. You realize consistency is what gets you champions. This guy's a champion. He knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. So that's why I'm going Marshawn Lynch, 6th overall to Rob. Value actually matches up. Marshawn Lynch, 6th overall player. Now with the dramatic fall, Vinnie Cacciatore is going to be licking his chops, seeing LaShawn McCoy on the board. Probably the easiest pick he's ever going to make. Tyner's sitting there at number 13, wishing a flashy player, Shady, as they're calling him in Philadelphia, falls to him, but he's not going to because that's right. Vinnie Cacciatore, the cursed team, the Game of Thrones cursed team, drafts LaShawn McCoy, the number 3 overall player, with the 7th pick, and that's something he's going to be running around the room. He's going to be ecstatic about. Probably going to chug a beer or some kind of hard alcohol at that point because he is excited about the pick. His team is going to have a phenomenal year if he gets that kind of draft, if the draft falls that way for him. So we're now moving on to the 8th pick, a guy that made just as many trades as Vinnie Cacciatore. That's right, I'm talking about John Pollitt. Now the top 7 players off the board, we've kind of gone, not necessarily in order, but the top 7 players have gone in the top 7. So that leaves our players 8 through 14. You got to look at those players as potentially the guys that are going to get drafted. Now, John Pauly, again, a regular season, had a phenomenal season. Fantasy, playoffs, not so much. So he's going to be looking for guys that are going to be in the playoff race. I'm talking the actual NFL playoff race all season, so he's getting those late season points, and that's why I think he goes with Calvin Johnson, the top receiver on the board, a guy that has the potential to put up a 40-point game at the receiver position, which you don't see very often. Calvin Johnson, a guy the Lions who I think are going to be in the wild card race all year, and if they're not, you know they're going to be playing for some, at least playing for pride. A guy that's going to get you points every week. You just hope Megatron's knees can hold up. Paulie's banking on that fact. So Paulie with the 8th overall pick going Calvin Johnson. Now, with the 9th overall pick, Nate Enzi went with the safe strategy last year. Went with running backs, went with receivers, went with quarterbacks early. He throws all that out the window. He scratches it. He trashes it. He absolutely sends it to the trash, drags it down, and empties it because he goes with Jimmy Graham. That's right, folks. Jimmy Graham, 9th overall pick to Nathan Enzi. And why do I say this? He knows the value of winning the positional battle each week. Every week, you line up Jimmy Graham in your fantasy lineup, you are going to win that fantasy week. So let me tell you right now, folks, Jimmy Graham, a phenomenal pick at number 9, a great value. Enzi going with a whole new, bold strategy. Hopefully it pays off for him this year. I don't know why my computer just turned on. That was Tequila Sunrise by the Eagles, in case anybody was wondering. But the Henny Honey Boo Boos, hopefully no frowny face in the name this year. Hopefully it's only a smiley face. He's hoping he gets to the championship. So that's right, folks. Nate Enzi, 9th overall pick, Jimmy Graham. Now moving on to Grant Duncan, a guy whose team, again, had the most points scored against him this year. You know he's going to put the value on defense. But, of course, defense doesn't apply that way in fantasy for all you newer owners to the league. So that's why I think, you know, he's a Broncos fan. He knows the value of the receiver position. He had this guy on his team last year. Ended up being the number 1 fantasy wide receiver in all of fantasy last year. That's right, I'm talking DT. That stands for downtown. Also stands for Demaryius Thomas. That's why I go with the 10th overall pick. I got Grant Duncan drafting Demaryius Thomas. Another big year. Decker's out of the equation. They sign Emmanuel Sanders. All the deep balls are going to still be going to Thomas. Julius Thomas will be going up the middle, up the seam routes, the deep routes. Peyton Manning loves to hit that comeback, loves to hit that deep out, loves to hit that deep fade. Demaryius Thomas will be on the receiving end of a lot of those. Grant Duncan knows that. Being a Broncos fan, drafts him with the 10th overall pick. Now moving on to the number 11 overall pick. This is a guy that values good quarterback play. Used to play fantasy football, not fantasy football, but flag football. Sorry, both FF footballs. Actually, just be FF. They both stand FF because one of the Fs, of course, is football. Sorry, I'm losing track. A lot of air going to my brain at this point. So with the 11th overall pick, again, Brett Kohler has that pick. Drafts Drew Brees. Again, a guy that values a good quarterback play. Hasn't had a great quarterback. Tony Romo was, you know, again, mediocre, which you can describe his team as being last year. He wants a top-quality quarterback. Again, going to win that positional battle most weeks. So that's why Brett Kohler, with the 11th overall pick, is going to be going with Drew Brees. Now, Steve Pennington, a guy who was an Atlanta Falcons fan, absolutely devastated, drafted some Falcons early, I believe he had Matty Ice at some point, maybe even Steven Jackson. Definitely disappointed at the results they turned in, so he's not going to be going with a Falcon. But let me tell you right now, he's going to be going with a guy that should be on the Falcons, or at least he wishes were on the Falcons. That's right, I'm talking about a quarterback, and I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. That's right, folks. Aaron Rodgers going with the 12th overall pick to Steve Pennington. Injuries hurt him last year. That's probably why his fantasy value is so down. Otherwise, you got to think he's going to be competing in that MVP race with Peyton Manning, the way he performed late in the season, the way he carried the Packers to, I believe, a playoff win. Just a phenomenal quarterback. Smart, fast, definitely a threat to get you that rushing touchdown, which is always big. 6 points, more than 4, which is, of course, is what a passing touchdown is worth. Aaron Rodgers, probably a better quarterback in that regard, in the rushing regard. Well, actually, he is a better quarterback than Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. Pennington knows this. Pennington capitalizes on Rodgers falling this far down the board. That's why Aaron Rodgers goes to Steve Pennington at the number 12 overall pick. You know Kohler's probably kicking himself in the butt for not drafting him. We now move on to Clayton Tyner. Again, a guy who loves flash. And you see a player sitting out here. He's a wide receiver, position that Clayton really covets, something that he wants to improve from last year's team. Although last year's team wasn't bad at the wide receiver position, of course, looking back on it, Terrence Williams, Crabtree coming off that late season Achilles injury, but he wants it to be consistent this year. He wants a guy that's flash, that's going to put his heart on the line, a really a T.O. kind of player. Ironically, plays for a team that T.O. used to play for. That's right, with the 13th overall pick, Clayton Tyner goes with Dez Bryant. That's right. You know he's going to be happy with that pick. Getting a top-flight wide receiver anytime in the draft is nice. Getting a Dez Bryant anytime in the draft is outstanding. So that leads us to our last pick in the first round. Of course, this last pick in the mock. And it goes to the regular season champion, John Tortorella. And you look at the players left on the board, the top-rated players on my big board. We got Monty Ball, A.J. Green, Brandon Marshall. I think it's an obvious choice. The guy's a Chicago guy. His loyalty is to the Chi-City, Chi-Town. I guess is probably the better way to put it. A big fan of Dicka, big fan of Dicka's restaurant. And you know, Dicka's been talking a lot about Brandon Marshall. If you've been watching NFL Live lately, comes on 2 o'clock. Actually, scratch that. Comes on 1 o'clock, 1:30 on the West Coast. That means it's 3 o'clock, 3:30 Central Standard Time, which of course is where Chicago is located. So that's right. I'm talking with the 14th overall pick. He goes with a top-flight wide receiver. He has the potential to get two you know, he has back-to-back picks, so he has the potential to get 2 top wide receivers, A.J. Green, but his first pick, his 14th pick, is going to be Brandon Marshall. It's too easy for him to do it. You can also see him going Jeffrey with that 15th pick due to his love for Chicago, his loyalty to the city. So again, that's the Fantasy Mock Draft. I hope everybody enjoyed. I am your host, Todd Kuiper Berman Jr. Please let me know what you think of this video. And, what's up, fella? Hope everything's going well. So,